Travis Wayne Goodsill. Alrighty. Thanks to a neighbor. I'm up early so I can do this before my run and not have to wait until sometime later this morning to do this video. As I promised last night, this is number one of the two videos to expose the church. This one deals with the Confederate flag. The previous month, there was a news report about a Mormon here in Utah upset when they went to, I think it was Walmart, and found that an employee was wearing a Confederate flag mask. And so a Mormon employee wearing a Confederate flag mask and another Mormon complaining that a Mormon is wearing a Confederate flag mask. This shows you that at the lower levels, Mormons don't know anything. And in criminal organizations and in the evil empire, this is how it works. So at the lower levels, you recruit everybody. And those who show loyalty to the organization get bumped up. And if they can continue to show loyalty, that process will continue until there's no position available higher up. But those who are clueless, remain naive, they stay at the bottom. Especially those who are a danger to the organization, such as those who would turn against the organization if they found out the crimes that were going on. And so that's why Mormons, this particular Mormon was offended by the other Mormon wearing the Confederate flag at work, because he's trying to be safe, trying to protect others as well if he has the virus. And so I remember doing the video talking about how the Mormon was clueless about church history, right here available for anyone to know about in Utah, as the south of Utah is called Dixie, with Dixie College. And so that gives you a background as to the confusion at the lower ranks in Mormonism. It's purposely designed that way to weed out the wheat from the chaff, to elevate people. So the Confederacy, as we all know, originated with the Civil War, as the slave owners of the Confederacy rose up against the North, refusing to submit to their authority, and war broke out. But the Confederacy lost. Yet, nonetheless, other takeovers in the conquering American government spurred a resurgence of the Confederacy movement. As signs and symbols began to be placed up all over America during these backward movements in America. And thus, Mississippi maintained a Confederate flag in their state flag. And then the news yesterday, Mississippi voted to take down forever the Mississippi flag with the Confederate flag on it. And so did the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints likewise take down the Confederate flag there in the state of Mississippi. If you don't know, many churches in America have flagpoles for the United States flag, and oftentimes many bishops or stake presidents will fly the state flag along with it to show loyalty for the nation and the state. So that would be interesting to know if the church is doing that. I know our particular stake, we've not been flying a flag during this coronavirus. We don't usually fly a flag anyway, only on certain holidays, and it's usually just the American flag, but it depends on the leaders of the building. Okay, so Helaman chapter 6. This is the secret Gadian band that originated with the Order of Nehors. Verse 22, and it came to pass that they did have their signs, yea, their secret signs, and their secret words, and this they might distinguish a brother who had entered into the covenant. That's the other video that I want to go over, is the temple endowment ceremony connected to Freemasonry, where the covenants are held. But this one has to do with the secret signs of the enemy. The Confederate flag, as the American flag, other signs all over the world, they use symbols with the meanings behind the symbols. And so in this particular case, the Book of Mormon is saying that, yeah, evil empire, evil government, evil church, they have their secret signs too. And in this, it's so that they can know their own brother and know that they aren't to be judged according to the laws. And if you betray that, as I have with the Mormon Church, you get a death sentence, as Mormons will turn on you, as they've turned on me, for exposing them, exposing their secret signs as the inverted pentagram of Lucifer. And so we need to go over some church history now. If you're not familiar, Joseph Smith Sr. became a Master Mason of the York Rites Lodge in 1818. Was given, as a result, the Temple Lodge, notice Temple, that's going to be another repetitive issue for the other video, the Temple Endowment with Freemasonry. And so this was long before 1842, when a number of you who have left the church have been questioning and wondering. Even Mormons are led to believe that Masonry was not a part of the Smiths family until 1842, long before. And Canandaigua, New York, was where his Temple Lodge was. And so everything went along just fine. Joseph was given the farm in Manchester because he became a Master Mason, because that's how the respect of the position takes care of you. And then along came a man named William Morgan into Canandaigua. He was a Yorkite member of Freemasonry as well, and he was warning his fellow brethren in the organization about a threat to take over America in the 1828 presidential election. The plans involved the Illuminati that had been organized on 1st of May 1776 by Johann Adam Weishaupt. He had infiltrated the Scottish Rites Lodge. His organization had, as they had to go underground when the authorities in Germany were on to the organization and were shutting them down and chasing them around and kicking them out. And so the established pattern of going underground when you're exposed, infiltrating another organization, rising up into popularity, rising up in rank, taking over leadership positions, and then eventually taking over the organization. That is the pattern of this Illuminati. And multiple times over history, they've had to do this. But they made it to America with the 1812 war that William Morgan was a part of, along with General Andrew Jackson, who became president, of whose statue people were trying to take down because he owned slaves. Not understanding that Andrew Jackson is a father of American history who actually tried to save America. And it's kind of a bit of a conflict when you have your founding fathers who declare independence and set in motion what would be everybody's eventual freedom, as long as we don't allow the corruption to overcome it. And at the same time knowing that these people who are establishing a constitution were also slave owners. And in some cases sexist to their wives and other women. Nobody talks about that. But yeah, there was a lot of ingrained traditions that needed to be overcome. But for us currently, to rise up and overthrow American history is kind of the wrong approach. It's an extremist approach. But nonetheless, Andrew Jackson tried to save America as president, as he was successful in shutting down the central bank yet again. The war in 1812 was because the new Congress decided we're not going to renew the central bank anymore. And so they voted, did away with the central bank, and thus Britain, financed by the Rothschild, heir to the throne, Nathan, who had become the financial backer of the secret Illuminati, as he had joined the Scottish Rites Lodge himself to be recruited, paid for the War of 1812 here in America. And so information got leaked in that war that the Scottish Rites had been infiltrated here in America. And so William Morgan, after that war, which, as you can imagine, losing, well, we won the war, but Congress gave in and put back the central bank. And thus Andrew Jackson had to fight to get rid of it again. And then after he left the presidency, the central bank came back. Now we have the Federal Reserve, which yesterday is giving a whole ton of money to the church. And so William Morgan was warning Canandaigua. And so who was he warning? Joseph Smith Sr. and Joseph Smith Sr.'s lodge. As the Master Mason, Joseph takes over a leadership as the Master Mason, even though William Morgan outranked Smith Sr. It was Smith Sr.'s lodge and community in Canandaigua. And so this is where the Cooper Smith shop of Smith Sr. comes into play. He's able to use that as a cover to make barrels with the copper. That's how he's able to obtain copper, which comes into handy when making a Book of Mormon to replace the books that William Morgan had been prepaid as an investment to write, to warn America of this infiltration. But William Morgan was falsely arrested on a couple of occasions. They were death threats. They were warnings saying, back off, don't publish your books, because we aren't going to let you publish them. And so I'm well aware of death threats during court proceedings, as I've got one against the church and receiving death threats on specific symbols to let me know that I'm supposed to back off. And of course I'm not. And so Joseph Smith is the one responsible for secretly removing William Morgan from the country, protecting his life, and then taking over the finishing of the books that William Morgan was going to talk about. And I say books because there was another one about the Mandan Indian tribe that Lewis and Clark had discovered. And as a Yorkite, they have more exclusive knowledge on that information because of the Knights Templar being the highest rank in the York Rites Masonry. And has to do with the Kensington stone and the sale of the eastern United States and caves in southern Illinois of buried treasure plates with Egyptian writing on them. So yes, that's just like the Book of Mormon, huh? Like I said, Smith Sr. took over the operation. And when we get to Wikipedia, we get confirmation that the enemy of the Scottish Rites had found out that the Smiths were a part of foiling the plot to take over America back as early as 1826 to prevent the Scottish Rites president from taking over the throne of America and re-establishing a monarchy again in America. Under Masonry, this is what the family, the Kimball family, allowed to be put on the website. And so whether it's the family that is withholding the information and outright lying to us, or Heber C. Kimball himself is outright lying to us from his journal entries here. But this is what is reported. In 1823, Kimball received the 3 craft degrees of Freemasonry in the lodge at Victor Flats, Ontario County, New York. Now, as I've gone over, he's lying. You don't rise 3 degrees in 1 year. Yes, Joseph did it in 1842, but that was after 1826. Joseph's particular case was an exception to the rules, but the Warsaw Lodge was upset with Joseph being given an advance to the 3rd degree Master Mason the next day, as they themselves were still waiting to become Master Masons themselves and spread out again to get their own temple. And so this is the first lie, if you know anything about Freemasonry, is that no, you don't just rise to 3 degrees in 1 year. Second, like I said with Joseph Sr., when you become the 3rd degree, you get your own temple to run. That's why you're given the 3rd degree. You're now a Master Mason. And so you get your own temple. So why then is Kimball, or the Kimball family, claiming that he didn't get one? Third, Victor Flats is in Scottish Rites territory, not York Rites territory. Now he's trying to take advantage of our ignorance, as we'll get to. But before 1826, Masonry was divided up vertically in New York for the two main lodges, York Rites and Scottish Rites. So Canandaigua, for example, in the lower part of New York, was below the Smith Farm, but also the Palmyra Lodge, where Hiram was a member of the of the York Rites. Sorry. And so the divisions were established that way. And so the Batavian Press that had invested in William Morgan's book was the next segment from Victor Flat's area, and was York Rites as well. And it was the Victor Flats area that was Scottish Rites. And this is where Brigham Young had moved to, because he was living and growing up during 1826 on the other side to the east of Canandaigua, which was Scottish Rites again. So Scottish Rites then moved over to the Victor Flats area of Scottish Rites as well. And this is how the Kimballs and the Youngs knew each other. That's why Brigham and Heber were best buddies. And so Brigham Young, when he joined the church after his wife had passed, being sick, he and Kimball went and converted all of his Scottish Rites buddies to bring them into the church. And we'll get to that in just a second here as I expose Heber C. Kimball again. And so another lie by Kimball, trying to claim that he doesn't say he's from Scottish Rites, and you're not allowed to be a member of Scottish Rites and then get a rank in York Rites. You have to stick with one or the other. And the Americas were being segregated by the different rites. You were either a York Rites or a Scottish Rites. As Western New York was being built up with a frenzy of new lodges. So then they go on to say, the next year in 1824, Kimball sent a petition to the chapter at Canandaigua, New York. They don't mention Joseph Smith Sr. as the Master Mason of whom he would have sent such petition to. Joseph Sr. would have known, if he was putting Victor Flats on his resume, his application, that he could not obtain it and would have been rejected. I'm sorry, that's Scottish Rites. You claim you're a Master Mason and you don't have your own temple in Scottish Rites, and you are wanting to receive the Royal Arch degree in our York Rites, which is level 7, of which William Morgan was when he came in 1826. Yeah, so again, Heber C. Kimball is lying, but he's also disclosing here that he knows about William Morgan. He knows about Smith Sr. But the family or him are leaving that key information out from us. Then he goes on to lie again, saying that Joseph Smith Sr. accepted his position for the 7th rank. Yeah. But he then claims, the anti-Mason movement in 1826, though he doesn't say 1826, it burned down the building in Canandaigua, and so I don't know. The records were destroyed. No, they weren't. Victor Flatz's records were destroyed, along with their temple, because that's why it's in red, and not the blue for Ontario County and New York and Canandaigua. No, Canandaigua preserved their records of who became a member. And so that's why we know that Smith Sr. was a Master Mason there in Canandaigua, getting that temple as his. And so it's Kimball that is being exposed here, or the Kimball family covering it up, that this is all a lie. And so when you understand that William Morgan was warning the Yorkites of the plot to take over America by the Illuminati who had infiltrated the Scottish Rites, and you have Kimball backing it up with lie upon lie upon lie and misinformation, and refusing to acknowledge certain key information that if he were a legitimate good Mormon, he would have said, oh yeah, my buddy Smith Sr. was there in Canandaigua, and that's how I became familiar with the Book of Mormon, and yeah, no. Let's see. That's the sign in the heaven that he claims. Oh, 22nd. Wasn't it 21st? I'm getting to this. I don't know how many hours this video is going to last. We'll have to see. And so this is what resulted in the Book of Mormon. And you can see that the infiltration into the church had occurred. And so, like I said, Young and Kimball converted their Scottish Rites buddies, brought them into the Smith organization. Now, the Freemasonry had been done away with, but as you are well aware, the Kirtland Temple was built up. This was not intended to be a Freemason lodge, because Freemasonry was sort of discouraged still, as Hiram had to change the spelling of his name. And I've talked about how Martin Harris was on the committee in Palmyra of anti-Masons. And so that's why the 116 pages were destroyed by Martin Harris. And so the temple was more in line with a religious temple, which came from Smith Sr.'s New Israelite religion. They believed in temples, and the New Israelites were in the process of building a temple in Vermont until the wood scrape incident occurred as a doomsday date where the members gathered together, and the neighbors were freaked out and had the militia called in to break it up, and the organization was done away with. But the New Israelites was where Joseph Smith Sr. Learned about the little divining rod game, but where he was known as a master rodsman. He was experienced with the rod divining, but he also learned from Justice Winchell, who joined the organization, counterfeiting, thus making plates to imitate other objects, counterfeit. And so he knew how to make the plates necessary for the print press. When William Morgan was no longer able to stay in America, let alone complete the books he was intending to make with the Batavian press. And so Smith Sr. couldn't keep employment with the Batavian press. They had to go their separate ways. Batavian press published a book on the 3 ranks of Masonry under William Morgan's name, which was not his intended book. And Smith Sr. had to find some other publisher, thus the need to get Martin Harris, who had money, that they were trying to get him to pay for the publication of the Book of Mormon. And his skill in making plates, copper for the barrels to store the gunpowder for the militia's rifles in Canandaigua and in Palmyra at his coopersmith shop in I've forgotten the name of his farm, but that's how he was able to do it in secret, is supply the militia in Palmyra and Canandaigua with gunpowder by making the barrels with the copper bindings, and thus be able to get extra copper without anybody knowing, to work on forging plates that would be used at the print press whenever they could finish the book and find a Martin Harris to pay for it and get it published. Oh yeah, so the New Israelites also were involved with Jewish mysticism. They believed Hebrew was the angelic tongue. And so this is where Joseph Sr. learned Jewish mysticism, had his Tree of Life dreams, and then became part of the replacement of the 116 pages. The Tree of Life dream of Lehi and then Nephi. That's all Jewish mysticism that came from Smith Sr.'s dreams that he had, if we can call them dreams now, because they may have just been ways of writing Jewish mystical literature. Along with that, with Jewish mysticism, comes astronomy, and thus the Holiness to the Lord parchment that Smith Sr. had obtained, with the 4 pentagrams in the corners of the parchment representing a star chart. Now I know Mormonism and the Magic Worldview by Quinn is trying to claim that, oh, it's magic and it's the tradition of the people and blah blah. No, Quinn. Again, Knights Templar, Jewish mysticism. Don't go off into La La Land. And with these backgrounds of Smith Sr. came a way to publish the Book of Mormon, and yet using Jewish mysticism with a latter-day context. As I've tried to tell you guys, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not Christian. They follow the Christianity of Judaism. And because we use the Greek word Christ, rather than the Hebrew word Messiah, which are both the same word that is translated as anointed, there comes a lot of confusion when we don't clarify the translation. And so Christians are under the concept now that there are no other Christs ever in world history, despite Jesus, who they claim is the one and only Christ, who is said to be the one to restore the kingdom of David, and yet don't acknowledge King David as being an anointed Christ. That's what it means to be a king, is you become a Christ. And so, if you remember your initiatories, Mormons, or I'm not speaking to Mormons, am I? Ex-Mormons. What is the anointing part? What do you become when you get anointed? You become a Christ, to become hereafter kings and queens, high priests and high priestesses unto the Most High God, Melchizedeks. And that was what Joseph was doing, was restoring the kingdom of David, according to the Jewish concept, not according to the Christian one. Because in section 103 of the Doctrine and Covenants, in verse 16, talking about restoring Zion, redeeming Zion, and thus the kingdom of David. He says in verse 16, "Therefore I will raise up," so born as a child. Remember Isaiah? "Unto us a child is born, unto us a child is given, and upon his shoulders is the government," the king, "a mortal man, unto my people." This is Joseph Smith talking here. Who's my people? Being referred to Joseph Smith. That's a Mormon. So that's why Joseph wanted to have temples where the initiatories of washing and anointing were to occur, to have Mormons become Christs, anointed, kings and queens, and become high priests and high priestesses as Melchizedeks. Thus the Melchizedek priesthood. And so we are not Christian because of the temple rituals of being made Christ, kings. That's what it refers to as a Christ, as a Messiah. Has nothing to do with gods until you get to the Egyptians. And that's where each pharaoh, each Melchizedek in Egypt, is both a king and the great high priest over the priesthood of Almond. Remember, Joseph Smith calls Jesus Christ Son Almond? It's because Pharaoh was conceived of in the 18th dynasty, which I've gone over is the kingdom dynasty of David Moses, Tawuk Moseh. And during that time, Hatshepsut is the one who started it, where she became the second female pharaoh by informing the Almond priesthood that her queen mother had conceived Hatshepsut by Amun himself. The god Amun came to Hatshepsut's mother, the queen, and conceived her, Hatshepsut. And then she threw in a premortal council in heaven foreordination of her needing to be Pharaoh with the early death of David Moses II, Tawutmose II, and David Moses III not being old enough to take the throne of Egypt yet. And the Almond priesthood said, oh, yeah, great, that fits. In our theology, we'll do it. And thus she became Pharaoh, a Christus, a Christa. And that's a concept that Christians are trying to erase from world history, is the concept that kings are Christs. And that's why Jesus was written as such, that he was supposed to be the restorer of the kingdom of David, but he failed. And so then you get to the Knights Templar, and they find something digging up under the ruins of the Jerusalem temple. And the Pope establishes them as Knights Templar, and they become filthy rich, protecting those pilgrimaging to Jerusalem. But then Friday the 13th, as the Pope was upset and greedy and jealous of their strength and wealth and influence, and thus sent out a death threat. And thus the Knights Templar took the legend of the Holy Grail, of which is video recorded by Monty Python and the Holy Grail, because they had video recordings back then, didn't they? And they came to America to buy the land in the eastern United States, and had buried Egyptian records, treasure plates in Egyptian, in southern Illinois, which was to be designated as New Jerusalem. Holy Grail, and if you saw Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, you know that that has to do with the bloodline, not of Jesus, as Dan Brown is making it out to be, but for the Messiah, the Christ, the man who is to become king in New Jerusalem, to fulfill Jeremiah chapter 23, who will become the king of the world and save the Jews and save the house of Israel, like Moses. And Moses, therefore, was in the 18th dynasty of the David Moseses, who they themselves in the 18th dynasty restored the kingdom of David as well. And so Smith Sr. knows about all of this with the Knights Templar. He knows Jewish mysticism. He knows astronomy and star charts. So the prophecies of the latter days. Sun shall be darkened, moon turned to blood, stars fall from heaven, and the particular sign that Isaiah talks about, a virgin shall give birth to a son and call his name Amen El. Amen. El. God Amen. Son Amen. And knew about Southern Illinois. When you go to Joseph Smith Jr.'s 19 July 1840 sermon that Brigham Young refuses to put in the Doctrine and Covenants, in which, among many other things, that he knew he was going to be murdered, he says, we're going to build Zion, and New Jerusalem in southern Illinois. It comes from the Knights Templar of the York Rites. This is the whole point and purpose of the York Rites, is to prepare America to become the New Jerusalem for the man who would be raised up and fulfill the prophecies of the Bible. And so there you have it in 103. I will raise up unto the Mormons a man who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel. And so Joseph Smith knows that there will be another attack on America, that his organization is going to be under attack and overcome, usurped from him, and will need to be restored again by a future Mormon in this apostate church, who will lead them like as Moses. And so the signs, secret signs of the Illuminati in the Scottish Rites is the inverted pentagram that they used from the Bible in Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? And it's referring to the star Venus, or the planet Venus, which is female. And I wanted to do a video on that also, but I sort of did, talking about the connections to Lilith and Ishtar, Esther. But that was the secret sign that Brigham Young established on the Nauvoo Temple. And I'll get into the temple and Freemasonry connections with the endowment in another video. With this one, he let others of the Scottish Rites and Illuminati, because not all Illuminati infiltrated Scottish Rites. They branch out when they get exposed and seek for other places to infiltrate and rise up in. And so in 1826, they again had to scatter and go underground and look for another group to infiltrate. Brigham Young indicated that he had found the cause of that 1826 disturbance, preventing them from taking over America in 1828's presidential election. And so that's why the inverted pentagram is on the Nauvoo Temple, dedicated on May 1st. There were Mormons who were upset by this and left Brigham Young's organization because of just a simple changing of the date for dedication of the temple. Alpheus Cutler is the main one, who talked about how Joseph Smith had told Alpheus Cutler that he needed to look for a sign in the heaven for when to restore the true church again, his church, his organization. And then Alpheus Cutler was premature, as he thought he saw the sign, but that was not the sign. Likewise, did Joseph Smith Sr. think he saw a sign on, they're claiming here, 22nd of September, 1827? Let's confirm that. Search. September 18... No. It's only 6 here for September. Do you remember 21st night, September? Love was changing the minds. Okay, I continued to pursue my common vocations in life until the 21st of September, 1800, oh, not 18, 23. Okay, that's when they first encountered William Morgan. Let's see, the above mentioned September. Here we go. Yep, 22nd. Okay. And so in my stellarium, I have found on the 22nd of September, 1827, a sign that is very close, just not quite good enough for, whoops, when did I exit out of that? For what was in a sign in the heavens of the latter days in Revelation chapter 12, verse 1 and 2 and 5. And there appeared a great wonder, a sign in the heaven, a woman. It's not a woman, she's a virgin, Virgo, clothed with the sun. And so that's the middle of September, middle of October, when the sun is in Virgo, and the moon under her feet. Now we're getting more specific. The date is narrowing, because the moon is not at the feet of Virgo every single day of the year, because, well, we're looking for middle of September to the middle of October. Now there's only one time when the moon is in at the feet of Virgo during this time, because the moon goes around once a month, and so only one time during this time period. I don't think it would happen at the beginning of the sun being there and the end of the sun being there, but that would be interesting. But no, that's not what you're looking for. So we've now narrowed it down to one day in that time period, month time period. Now we have another one that gives us the year, the specific year, and upon her head is the constellation of Leo, which has designated of 9 stars. But there's now 12 stars. 3 additional stars are to be on the head of Virgo in the constellation of Leo. And that night, when they decide to take over the publication of William Morgan's books, it's because he sees a sign in the heavens. And it's so close, but the planets are not on her head, they're on her shoulders. So close, but not it. Nope, it's a future time, and that's what they eventually realized when they realized that they had been infiltrated and they weren't gonna succeed, and they were gonna die, be murdered. And so they then knew it's going to be a future time. So thus Joseph told Alpheus Cutler of another sign to look forward to for his birth, and thus the need to restore the kingdom. This, by the way, 23rd September 2017. And there was another sign that we're going to get to with the Confederate flag. And so we might be having to do a background video first and then do a part 2 on the Confederate flag. Maybe. Probably not. Because the date of 21st August 2017 was when the total solar eclipse crossed all of America. And yes, it went over Adirondack and Missouri, Independence, Missouri. But it also went over southern Illinois. On 8 April 2024, there will be a crossing total solar eclipse that goes over the Kirtland Temple and is it Menden? The Joseph Smith Farm. Goes over both of those and crosses in southern Illinois. And now all of you are going, oh, the Confederate, oh, I get it now. We'll get to it. This is why the Knights Templar, being involved with the restoration of New Jerusalem, the burying of treasure plates in Egyptian, buried them in southern Illinois in the caves there. Remember, Joseph Smith is recorded as saying, I have seen a vision where I saw the plates of the Nephites in a cave filled with treasure plates in Egyptian. Remember Joseph Smith talking about something like that? And everybody was digging up Cumorah trying to find that cave. They're looking in the wrong place, southern Illinois. And so, yes, the Knights Templar knew about the heavens and knew where the two solar eclipses would cross in southern Illinois. That's why they buried the treasure plates there in Egyptian in southern Illinois, is because New Jerusalem was to be built there. That the King of Kings, the Messiah, the Christ, would have his throne there in America in New Jerusalem, and would overcome the kingdoms of the world to restore the good kingdom, overcoming the evil kingdoms of the world. And this is how they knew where to do it, was X marks the spot. And so these were star signs for them. And let's see. And I covered all of... Nope. So the Book of Mormon again. Remember, it starts off with Lehi being told in a dream, they want to kill you, leave Jerusalem to another promised land, New Jerusalem. That pattern of leaving promised land to a new promised land is repeated over and over and over again in the Book of Mormon. But it starts with the Jerusalem that is conquered by Babylon. And the first time Babylon comes in and attacks, they don't destroy the temple, they don't destroy Jerusalem, they don't take people into captivity per se. There might have been some, but they first tried to establish a puppet king on the throne of Jerusalem, removing the lineage dynasty of kings in Jerusalem with a puppet king of Babylon, Zedekiah. And this is talked about right up front in the Book of Mormon. And the solar eclipses are in two waves. First, in 2017, second, in 2024. And so here we have a situation where the Smiths, knowing about the Knights Templar, knowing about the solar eclipses to come in the future at Southern Illinois, are wanting to build New Jerusalem for the Christ who is coming. The Scottish Rites knew this also. By infiltrating Smith's organization, or whether they had to find, well, they had to find a new date in the future to conquer America, because it was foiled in 1826 by the Smiths. But then they conquered the Smiths organization with the assassination of Joseph Smith, which was remembered on the 27th only by me, as the church refused to acknowledge Joseph Smith's martyrdom date. And so the church established their inverted pentagram signs that, hey, we've conquered, this is our symbol, secret sign, that you may know us. And then they brought it to Utah. But other Scottish Rites in 1826 had to scatter and go underground. Where did they scatter and go underground? Many went to the south and became Confederates. They needed a new date for when to conquer the United States of America. The Civil War was the next attempt to try to take over the United States. And the Confederate flag was developed during that time period. Let's verify, because if it came after, that would be interesting also. Confederate flag. Okay. 13 stars, having to do with 13 tribes of the House of Israel. During its existence from 61 to 65. That was the Civil War. Let's see. That's not the national flag. Okay, so that was not it. The different one, the stainless banner, 63 to 65, and the bloodstained banner. Oh. Okay, it's the stainless banner and the bloodstained banner. That is the cross. X marks the spot. So the original Stars and Stripes was 13 stars in a circle. That's educational. Alrighty, so you see what is happening here? They are establishing a new date for when to take over America. And so it's apparent that they had no intention. Oh yeah, Heber C. Kimball's sign in the heaven. Notice he declares a sign on that night. No, that was not the sign. But the Confederates needed a new date of which to organize to take over America again. And the Civil War was not intended to be that takeover, though they did try to take over. But that's not the tactic that is their pattern of behavior to take over. That was just an all-out, full-on war to take over. And they knew that was not going to be it. But it gave rise to the symbol on the flag of the Confederates for when they were to take over and destroy America. And that is the exact same time period that the Yorkites were planning on restoring the kingdom of David with the Messiah, who was to be the king of the world. The Scottish Rites decided to take over that themselves. Thus, the crosses of the stained banner, as I've now learned, and the blood banner, and notice that the stars are in the stripes in the sky. Of the crossroads, X marks the spot for the time when they will foil the Yorkites' plan and destroy America and establish their new world order with their puppet king. And so yes, they planned to put in their puppet king on the throne of America for the 2016 election, of which he gets inaugurated in 2017, and then is to rule America, causing destruction for the 2 terms until 2024, which by that time America is expected to be completely destroyed, and from the ashes, this is where the phoenix comes in, which comes in from the Bennu bird of the Egyptians, with the creation story. As the land emerges from the waters, that concept is what they usurped for their secret band, and that was their plans, was to use the Yorkite plans, which they had found out through the Smiths, to foil the Yorkites now as revenge for them Yorkites destroying the Scottish Rites plans, and establish the Scottish Rites Illuminati Confederate, and then Communist, then Nazi, then GOP, or Democrat, then GOP. They infiltrated everyone, but that was their plan, is to infiltrate everywhere, put their players in position across America and in other parts of the world even, because you can't have outsiders interfering like in the Revolutionary War. And thus rise up from the ashes of America with the New World Order, with the doctrine of Lucifer, as Albert Pike wrote in his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. And so the Confederate flag is the secret sign for the future date to destroy America, so that everyone in their group and organization will know and be reminded, because an elephant never forgets, as the donkey refers to the donkey of Balaam, who was paid to prophesy against the house of Israel. He says, the donkey is telling him, you can't do that. Can't do that. But then he beats his donkey. So, yeah, all of these are symbols and signs relating to another story and concept. But that's the Confederate flag, is that they had been they had been foiled in their plot to destroy America, and so the Confederates, unlike the Illuminati with the Scottish Rites, with the inverted pentagram of Lucifer to let people know of their organization. The Confederates did a different one. And they don't use inverted pentagrams. They use stars, actual stars, on the cross for the sky to designate signs in the heavens, specifically the total solar eclipses over America, as the time frame to destroy America. And that's why we have a puppet president put in by Putin, and Putin is the president of Russia, emperor of Russia. He's now emperor for life, as he's working on. Has the seal of their nation as the Scottish Rites 2 eagles. So if you remember Trump going to the one college and the students designing a special seal just for Trump with the 2 eagles and the golf clubs and etc. Yeah, they were mocking Trump, but that's the Scottish Rites seal. Guess what seal the America uses? Yeah, the Illuminati seal, with the 1 eagle and the pyramid on our dollar bills. And so yeah, Putin put in Trump. The GOP put in Trump. It was a rigged election to make sure that they fulfill their plot to destroy America. And that's why the GOP is turning a blind eye as Trump is destroying America, destroying the economy, murdering us with this coronavirus even, as the police have risen up to beat down protesters. They put their people in position, and we are being assaulted. And the Confederate flag, yeah, it rises with white supremacy and the KKK and neo-Nazis. Yeah, everybody has been activated. This is the time for destruction. And the latest destruction is that Trump has betrayed our soldiers in leaving them to be assassinated by Putin, paying the Taliban. And so, if you're of the lower ranks, you don't realize this, and you will be like the Lincoln Project, the Republican voters against Trump, and the vote vets who specifically yesterday in their advertisement called Trump a traitor for turning over our soldiers to be murdered and paid for by Putin to the Taliban who murder a soldier, American soldier. But this is the plot to take over America, guys. And they're going to keep it going until after 2024. They're expecting Trump to continue on after this 2020 election, if we even have an election, if they even allow us to have the appearance of an election. It's already rigged against us, guys. Trump hasn't stopped anything that was interfering in the 2016 election. Why would he stop it now? Democrats have no chance of winning, and thus Trump doesn't care about his ratings falling. He doesn't care about the stock market falling. He's doing Putin's bidding and destroying America. And rise from the ashes. And the Confederate flag was the symbol of the dating of when this was going to happen. They were going to destroy the plans of the York Rites. And so when I exposed this in the federal courts, I was given a death threat on Friday the 13th in March to let me know, we know, and we're not going to let you win. And so Judge Oberg has delayed and is letting them win. Alrighty, I think that's it. Trump. Yep. So there you go. By 2024, America will be destroyed and a new world order will be established. And notice that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints somehow got billions of dollars. Well, they've already invested billions, but they announced that, or they're in the process of renewing, restoring, remodeling Temple Square, and specifically the Salt Lake Temple with the inverted pentagram at the keystone of the doors of the temple. And it's to be finished when? 2024. And we're all expecting it to be done on that weekend of the 6th, on Saturday. That's the conference that we're all expecting the church to do, the rededication ceremony, as the 8th, Monday, is that final total solar eclipse. Not a coincidence. And so when I'm telling you that Nelson changed the temple ceremony, he deceived you because you failed to pay attention to the law of chastity changes. It's now according to the law of God. What is the law of God according to Brigham Young for marriage? Section 132, 10 virgins, polygamy. They're going to restore polygamy. And with the restoration of the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple after the destruction of America and the rise of the New World Order and the doctrine of Lucifer, which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that takes away agency from man and forces them to obey, to save them. It's for your security. We're here to help you. So, there you go. The Confederate flag is the secret symbol, and I gave you the whole historical background of it, and thus the interpretation of it. And so, yeah, the Confederates will tell you another symbolism of it. There's blood and soil, civil war, oppression from the Union. But no, it's a secret sign for a date. But only the higher rankers know about it. The lower guys only know blood and soil. And so, even though I was given another death threat yesterday by a Confederate soldier, as his claim in the title of his channel, it wasn't Confederate soldier. It was a different word. It was clear he too understood and knew that I was exposing the church. And that was on my old video, which was a Mormon-friendly video, and yet he... But yeah, he knows, and was letting me know he knows. So he may not have been a regular lower ranker. He was most likely an upper ranker, giving me another death threat warning, as I was given on the 13th of March, Friday the 13th of March. So, there you go. God help us all.